So, hi everybody.
Hi, how are you?
It's been a couple of months now since we've done a video together. So we're very excited to be able to come back to doing that again today. Um, and we were really inspired. We were watching a video, a documentary about feminism in Spain the other night. And, they talked a lot about the whole kind of patriarchal system. And, you don't need to be a man or a woman to buy into that system, where basically there's an inequality then between men and women on all sorts of levels. There's a real inequality in terms of what women get paid for the same job as men, how women are seen really, as almost like sometimes second-class citizens or properties of their husband. And that's come out a lot in Spain recently around, women who have been raped and then the abusers not given big jail terms because, they say, oh, well,
It wasn't rape,
it wasn't rape, it was just sexual abuse.
because the woman didn't defend
The
herself.
woman didn't defend herself. I mean, so, all of these issues are now coming to the surface, I think, in Western Europe anyway, in Spain and in Ireland and some of these countries, because it's time now for patriarchy that whole system needs to change. And one of the words they used a lot in the documentary was misogyny. And that was a new word for me up until not so long ago. I didn't know what it meant, but it's anger against women.
Yeah.
So.
And the opposite of that.
Well, interestingly, they used the word misogyny about 20 or 30 times in the documentary, and not once did they use the opposite word. 'Cause I had to go and look it up myself because I'd never heard it, which is misandry.
Yeah, because we kind of think that the opposite is feminism, but it's not the opposite. No. Feminism is equality between men and women. Yeah. So a lot of people think that the opposite of misogyny is feminism, yeah, but it's not.
It's misandry,
yeah,
which is an anger towards men.
Yeah.
So you can have both. I mean, sure, you can have one or the other, but you can also have both. Mm. And in many ways, they're both very similar. Mm. If you have misogyny, you have an anger towards women. If you have misandry, you have an anger towards men.
Yeah.
And, both of them are unhealthy ultimately, aren't they? And really, I suppose, what we want to talk about today is the inner experience in many ways. Isn't that right?
Yeah. And I guess for me, as, being a mom of 3 boys, since I had the 3 boys, because I always looked at the world from me being a woman and how the patriarchy and the system affect me being a woman. But since having 3 small boys, kind of thought like, okay, how is this system going to affect my boys? And the thing is, this is something that I never really thought about before, and is how patriarchy, oppresses the woman in the sense of physically and financially and economically. But what I've really learned now is that patriarchy is also oppressing men and boys in the fact that they're not allowed to express themselves emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I think you being a man obviously have a more direct experience of that. I can talk about how patriarchy affects me being a woman, but I don't think we hear a lot about how patriarchy affects men. I think we seem to just look at the benefits. I did that anyway, the benefits that men have. But what are the disadvantages of patriarchy in a man?
Yeah, and I think that is probably the most important question, because on the outside, it's easy to see how a patriarchal system gives men, favors men in lots of ways over women, but we don't see the cost of that to men. And we don't, because we have to look at the inner in that. So the cost of that, so I grew up in a patriarchal system. So I was brought up, boys don't cry, boys don't express themselves emotionally. We're intellectual or we're physical, and, we're doers and we're strong and all this kind of stuff, and we're better. I mean, I grew up with the unconscious belief that men were better than women. That's it. I have to put my hand up and say that.
Well, I grew up with that. Being a woman, I grew up with believed that
yeah,
men were better than
yeah.
women. And I resented being a woman for a long time because
Yeah.
I felt I was less.
I know.
Yeah.
And I grew up with the idea that I was better than a woman. And imagine how, and you think, oh, well, that's privilege, isn't it? I mean, that's entitlement and privilege and, all that. But on an inner level, I suffered because of that. And I didn't realize it. I didn't have access to my emotional self. And sometimes we describe that as the inner feminine. Now, I've just brought in a different term there, but the inner masculine and the inner feminine. I didn't have access to my inner feminine. I couldn't grieve. I didn't know how. And, I wasn't able to relate on an emotional level. Women were just objects of desire. They weren't as smart as me. Can you imagine the struggle I had growing up was enormous. And obviously, all of those unconscious assumptions had to be broken down in me, and so I went through a dark night of the soul, waking up to not only the understanding that women are smart and smarter in many cases than I am, and but also that I had closed down this emotional side of myself, and the suffering of that. And if you look at the statistics in Ireland, for example, the cost of patriarchy is that young men suicide 10 times more than women do. 10 times more. Every day in Ireland, a young man kills himself. That is patriarchy. And people don't make that connection, obviously, because, we all we do is think about the outer rather than bringing in the inner.
Yeah, and I think if we are talking about equality and a world where, we are all sharing a healthy space. And I mean, I see that a lot in my work in relationships with couples, how this programming of the patriarchy in both men and women, the effect that has in the relationship, and then ultimately in the family, in the way we raise our children.
Absolutely. And, again, the stereotyping of gender doesn't help. It just doesn't help. Okay, we're boys, we're girls, and these days, we can express our gender in all sorts of ways. That's a different conversation. But what's important for me anyway is the inner awareness that I have both a masculine and a feminine side to myself. Whatever I express, gender-wise or sexually, doesn't really matter. What's really important for a healthy individual, a healthy child growing up, is that they are given full access to the masculine and feminine side of themselves. Would you agree with that?
Totally. And I think as well, like if we look at Hollywood, the movies that are presenting today, there is a lot of superheroes or superheroines. But again, if we really look at that, we're looking at the super heroine from the eyes of the male. So we're making these super women based on male principles.
And that happens a lot. You see it a lot in the business world, where women break through the glass ceiling and they become CEOs, just like the men and so on, or judges or whatever those places are where there aren't so many women. And oftentimes, the caricature that's represented, they become more masculine than the men themselves, rather than, allowing the role to also represent the feminine and modeling that for their male counterparts too. And I really love, I could just put in Jacinda Ardern, the president of New Zealand. I think she models really well what it is to show the feminine as well as the masculine sides of herself in a leadership role. I think she does that really well.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of women, it is a struggle, because especially when we have children, because, my generation, we've been brought up in you have the same opportunities than a man career-wise. And we've put a lot of energy into working and creating, that space where we can succeed in our careers. And then when the children come in, it's a real struggle for a lot of women. And this is one decision I made. I said, I'm not going to be superwoman. I'm not going to be superwoman. So for me, I made this choice. It's like, okay, my children are here now, so they are my priority. Of course, I still want to keep working. I won't put 100% energy into work. I'll put more energy into the children. And that was my choice, because I didn't want to be insane, even more insane.
Insane.
No, but it is a real struggle for women, because, you know,
you have
we
to be
both,
all things to all people,
and,
isn't it?
and I think it's not possible, or it's very hard. Something needs to suffer, something needs to give, and usually what suffers is the woman. Because obviously now the society that we live in, there is less support. We don't have our tribe to support us.
And our community.
And then at the end of the day, the ones that can suffer are the children, where they might have absent parents. That's another video, you know. But
I think it is.
But you know, it's like for me, what keeps me sane and in track is like right now, my commitment is to my children. And mainly, and also my commitment is to my work. But right now, while they're small, my main energy goes to them. And I know these will pass. I know they will grow and they will need me less.
And interestingly enough, my commitment at the moment is to my children. My main energy goes to them too. Because being 50-50 parents, we both nurture our children, which is the feminine, if you want to call it the inner feminine, and yet we both have the masculine side as well. We both work and we both provide as well, you know? And I think one of the things that we're always growing in our relationship is actually, you know, even though you're a woman and I'm a man, we're both developing our inner masculine and feminine sides, aren't we, together? That's what our relationship does. That's what a healthy marriage does, is that it's not, and okay, there are certain things that I do that I'm good at. And, you know, it's neither masculine or feminine, or inner male or inner female. There's certain things that you're good that you do. And so, you know, we balance each other out along the way. We complement each other. But we both, you know, we both nurture the kids. We both do some work. We both, you know, it's kind of, isn't it? And, you know, I think that is a healthy relationship where both people are aiming to have that inner masculine and inner feminine working. And also to say, you know, just to kind of reorient the topic, we could talk about this for a while, couldn't we? But to reorient the conversation a little bit, you know, in men, we find, because I've done a lot of men's work over the years and groups and so on and sharing, that if a man holds a lot of anger towards women, misogyny, you know, that energy lives in the body. And generally it goes down the body and it's in the prostate. That's where it lives. You know, that anger lives in the prostate. And for a woman, if she holds a lot of misandry or perhaps misandry or misogyny, and same for men both, that lives in the sexual organs as well and can cause health problems. You know, besides coming out emotionally and cognitively and behaviorally in all sorts of unhealthy ways.
And I think the system also, thank God we're breaking away from that, but the patriarchy has brought in this belief that somehow the children belong to the woman, because before it was like she was at home with the children, so they belong to her. And even in our society today, sometimes, you know, some women can play that out as these are my children. And, you know, if they're separating, they don't allow the father to have a relationship with the children. And that's part of the patriarchy as well.
People don't realize it's all part of this patriarchy system. In many ways, the power dynamics that go on between men and women. You know, a woman basically saying, I'm the only one who can nurture is wrong. Because men can nurture as well, of course. Now, when the kids are really small, obviously they're attached to their mom, and that's fine. That's natural. But men are nurturers, and we need to get in touch with that part of ourselves. The nurturers, the emotionally available, be able to grieve, to be able to relate, to be present with our children. I think one of the challenges for men is the distance that we create with our children. You know, this distance that is created is because of patriarchy. I'm a provider. I have to work. I can do things with my kids, but when do I actually hold them and put my arms around them and tell them I love them, and really overcome any sense of distance. I like that word. I think it's really important. And there's a lot of emotionally absent fathers out there. And unfortunately that leads to an unconscious misandry where there's an anger towards men.
Yeah. And anyway, are we done for today?
I don't know. I mean, we've probably gone on a bit too long. Yeah. If you've gotten to this stage of the video, thanks so much for staying with us in our exploration together. We'd love to hear any feedback you might have. We do these videos because we enjoy them so much. But, ultimately, we're open to having a wider conversation. Yeah. So thanks so much, everybody, for today, and Snuggles for joining us.
Okay. See you, bye.